Everybody, today I'm going to cover the 10 most valuable sales tips I have learned in my entire life. I have been selling since I was literally 5 years old. I went to kindergarten, and my first day I came back and I had no school supplies, but I had a bunch of cash. Sales is my obsession, it's my life. I have been teaching and training close to 4,000 salespeople since I was 18. My father's company was called Tiger Quest at the time, and he taught sales people all over the world. And my first job out of college was to teach people enrolled in his program. And he had about 4,000 to go through his program. And I was the head coach and taught and have been teaching sales forever. I just love people. I love new ideas. I love seeing horrible salespeople become phenomenal salespeople. I love scale. I love growth. Recently just took a company with $0 in revenue to 2 million in 45 days. So it's just my passion. I love it. And I wanted to share with you the 10 most valuable things I've learned about sales since I was 5. The number one is probably the most difficult, but the key to having massive success in sales is to fail as fast as humanly possible. You probably won't hear a whole lot of motivational speakers tell you to just get out there and fail. They want you to succeed, and these are the ways to succeed. I'm the complete opposite. I have never in my life had a problem embarrassing the shit out of myself. I love embarrassing myself. I love getting discouraged. I love people telling me no. I love failures. So I have to say this is by far the most important thing you can learn. Like, just go freaking fail, mess up in every way possible, but just get out there. It's just such good feedback. There is no better teacher than experience. Now people get really taken aback by this in time because I'm so in their face about failing miserably. And they're like, well, you don't know how bad I fail. You don't know what I've been through. It's just tough. It's traumatizing. And recently my brother, Chris, was listening to my podcast and he was like, did you really have the worst business experience ever? And I was like, I don't know. You tell me. He goes, yeah, you had the worst possible business experience you could ever imagine. I've had the worst experiences. I've had the worst failures, and they always are the best teachers. You learn so much from just failing. So that's number one. Get out there and just fail as fast as humanly possible. Number two, you'll see this a lot of big Marvism. It's a long story, but I had a lot of anger towards my dad at one point in my life, and I was seeing a psychologist. And in the sessions, she would I'd say something like, my dad taught me to add up every decision I'll ever make in my life, and they'll never equal the importance of who I decide to marry. She's like, your dad taught you that? And then I'd say, my dad taught me this. And my dad taught, this guy you really hate right now has taught you an awful lot of life in life. So there'll be a lot of big Marvisms in everything I teach, you see. His name's Marvin Email, and we call him Big Marv, and it became famous. We were at a Tony Robbins event, and we were called to speak on stage. And the next day, Tony Robbins was running around going, "Where's Big Marv? Where's Big Marv?" My dad had Parkinson's, and Tony Robbins dedicated a healer to help fix his Parkinson's. So he was looking around for my dad to see where he was. But that you'll see a lot of big Marvisms, and I'll never forget the day, the place, where I was, the weather, what office. And my dad was in Osceola Park in Jax Beach, and he had just filmed a sales webinar for people in his program, and it was my first day of starting my first company. And he's like, "How do you feel?" I feel nervous as crap. I'm scared to death. What if I fail? And is there any advice you'd give me? And he said, the number one most important thing to remember is people will buy from you even if they don't like you. As long as you do what you say you're going to do, they will trust you. Always do what you say you're going to do. People, if they don't like you, will buy from you. Even if they don't like you, if they trust you, they will buy from you. That is so freaking paramount. Always do what you say you're going to. That's won me more business than I could possibly describe. Always do what you say you're going to do. Number 3, and I recorded this on my podcast, like LinkedIn spammers just don't get this. Like the number one most effective way to generate business in 2021 is going to be, how can you add massive value? If your focus, if your obsession, if you're all you're thinking about when you network and when you talk to people is like, how can I add massive value in these people's life? You will get the business if you just focus on that. I can remember in my life when I had absolutely nothing. It was devastating, back to that business experience again. But I learned this extremely well from Tony Robbins, but even better from a guy by the name of Sean Callaghy. And he just ingrained in my subconscious, add value, lead with your heart and figure out how to add value, and you will make more money than you could ever imagine. And I cannot express how important this is. Just value. And I obsessed over that, adding massive value. And it got me in the room with the people I needed to get in the room with to help completely rebuild myself. If I wouldn't have done that, I'd be dead broke right now. But I just focused on adding massive value with very influential people, and it's transformed my life. Number 4, in The Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort talks a lot about this. But if you do not believe in your product or service, if you are not 100% convinced in your product or service, do not sell it. Don't. You will fail. And even if you have success, you'll be miserable inside because it'll be so freaking hard. But if what you do, what you sell, what you provide, you believe in, you will radiate. I'm telling you, radiate. You will radiate purpose. You'll radiate energy. People will tell you no. You'll get excited. You'll find a different way. Like, it all starts with that belief. One of the best careers in my life, one of the best sales consulting gigs I ever had was selling popsicles. It was, but the owner of the company was the greatest guy I've ever met. The guy that makes them was just the sweetest, nicest person in the world. And they were the best freaking popsicles in the world. And nothing could stop me from selling them. And we got into like 4,000 grocery stores within 6 months, which anybody knows the freezer space in a grocery store is insanely difficult to get in. But they were so freaking good. Nothing could stop me. And I just radiated purpose and energy and enthusiasm everywhere I went. And that people knew that, like, I have to buy from this guy because he's just not going to stop. So this is one of my favorite tips. Just like radiate purpose and energy and enthusiasm and excitement, and nothing can stop you. So this is difficult for a lot of business owners, especially salespeople. It's not as difficult for, but it is extremely difficult. Let's say you're a business owner. You're trying to sell the world your vision, your dream, and you're trying to get big deals, big prospects. And you created this phenomenal product. And you put your heart, blood, and soul into it. And of course, instinctively, the number one thing you want to talk about is how amazing it is, how all the products and features are, how it's got all these that's like, you're just so freaking excited about your baby. You want to tell everybody about your baby. But that is the worst way to sell. If you can develop rapport, and if you can find a prospect's pain, or whoever you're trying to sell's pain, their biggest desires, their biggest dreams, their biggest hopes, if you can discover that and tie that into a compelling story. And this quote is from Connie Golden, who wrote the foreword after David Gemmell, of my favorite author. David Gemmell died of stomach cancer. And it's the power of a story gets people to act when they know they really, really should. I mean, how powerful is that quote? It's like, nothing gets people to take action more on a grander scale and faster than a powerful story. If you go to a Tony Robbins event, what is it? It's just a bunch of examples of people having breakthroughs, of him understanding their story, of telling them where they could go by creating a news story. And there is no event like Date with Destiny that gives people bigger breakthroughs. It just gets you to act. If you watch his events, he's just telling story after story. The number one selling book in the world, in the history of the world, is number one for a reason. It's just a bunch of stories. It's a bunch of parables. It's the Bible. Like, if you want to sell and sell successfully well, paint your prospect or whoever you're trying to sell as the hero, as the person that's going to overcome challenges and obstacles by using your product or service. This is so hard to do, but once you get it, it is so easy to effectively sell and to scale. Number 6, I stole this from a guy by the name of Roland Frazier, so I want to give him credit where credit is due. But I love this because there's a part of my brain, not everybody has this, but there's a part of my brain when it comes to selling. I don't register the word no when I sell. I don't know what it is about me. I'm just completely missing that side of my brain when it comes to selling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 30 seconds to try to solve this maze as fast as possible. Try and solve the maze as fast as possible. Solve the maze. How would you do it? How would you solve it? 5 more seconds. What's the fastest way to get there? All right. And again, I stole this from Roland Frazier. And when he describes this about how to become a billionaire by buying businesses, he says there's always a faster way. So if you went like this, you did it wrong. Oh, excuse me. Let me go back. This is how you solve this maze. Oh, let me get you a different color. Just like this. Whoop. That's how you get to your outcome. Like, go the fastest way possible. And when they say no to you or they're not interested, it just means that you haven't found what they're looking for. You haven't found what they really want, what they really desire. So no just means find out what they're looking for. Find a more effective way to get in. So that's number 6. Number 7, resistance. This is also very difficult for salespeople to get because most salespeople are extremely confident, very cocky, a little arrogant. They got their swag. They know who they are. I'm one of them. I'm guilty of that. But you have to realize, again, another big Marvism, every single prospect that you meet with, even if it's the second, the third, the fourth, or the fifth time, they hate your guts. And it's not anything you did. It's just a subconscious registration that people automatically just instantly hate salespeople. It's just, it gets in their nervous system. It gets in their, puts them in fight or flight mode. Their reticular activating system blocks you out and they just say, I hate you. Get away from me. I cannot stand salespeople. And the reason is people love to buy, but they hate to be sold. And another reason is there's just so many crappy, pushy salespeople out there, like, that have made it very, very difficult for you to develop rapport. But once you get that, there is not a single person on this planet that you cannot develop rapport with and overcome resistance within 2 minutes, guaranteed. You could bring me the meanest, nastiest person in the history of the world. I could develop rapport with them because my dad used to teach 6 ways, but there's easily over 75 different ways to develop rapport with people easily. And you can do it with anybody with no sales acumen, somebody that hates your guts, within 2 minutes, guaranteed. Number 8, this is single-handedly the most effective sales tool you could possibly have. Now, I get a lot of crap for this too, but the number one reason why people don't trial close and I'll tell you what trial closing is in a minute. The number one reason they do not trial close is because they do not want to know how awful or how well they're doing during the sales process. Typically, they know they're not doing very well. So they're afraid to say, hey, prospect, how am I doing? Why? Because if you think about Tony Robbins, people's deepest fears, they're not going to be loved or they're not good enough. So they're afraid to ask the prospect to tell them how awful they're doing. It's scary to say, I know I'm not doing well. If I ask you how I'm doing, you're going to tell me I'm not doing well, so I'm not going to ask you. But why move forward when you don't even know what stage of the process they are in? How do you even know they want to buy? How do you even know if they're in a mode of resistance and want to kill you for selling them something? How do you even know if you found enough pain or provided enough proof? Like, how do you know when they're ready to buy? So that's what trial closing does. And trial closing, simply stated, is a search for the truth. It's an opinion asking question. And the first rule about trial closing is it has to be open-ended. Most people think that they're really good at trial closing when they say, are you ready to move forward? That's not a trial close. That's a close. A better way to get a gauge on where they are at in the buying process is to say, how do you feel about what we talked about so far? How likely are you to do business with our company? What do I need to provide further for you in order for you to make a buying decision? How quickly are you ready to move forward with a decision like this? When is the last time you decide to make a big investment like this? Those are trial closes, and they're very, very, very easy to do. And they tell you exactly where you stand in the sales process and what to do in the sales process. I mean, number 9's simple, but nobody does it. I recently just got blasted for putting out a quote that said, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Like, develop rapport, ask phenomenal questions, and shut up. Like, it's just insane why people think the best way to sell and to close and to get business is to talk their way into getting the customer to buy. That's getting it's so freaking hard to do, for one, to just like talk yourself into getting somebody to buy. And two, it's not going to develop a good long-term relationship. Now, if you see the quote, this describes what everybody's going through. Somebody's in a crisis, out of a crisis, or headed towards a crisis. If you're a phenomenal salesperson, or you want to be, this is all I do really well, and it's developed some of the best relationships. It's like, what's going on in your world? What are you suffering from? What keeps you up at night? What's the most difficult thing in your life right now? What's the most challenging thing in your life right now? If you could wave your magic wand, what would you want immediately in your life right now? And just like probing deep, deep, deep. The reason why Tony Robbins is able to have such massive breakthroughs with people, because he's not afraid to ask the very, very difficult questions. I mean, he will ask people questions for 20, 30 minutes just to truly understand what it's going to take for that person to have a breakthrough. So that's the key, is just like asking phenomenal questions, because then when it becomes time to offering solution and paying your prospect as the hero that's going to overcome extreme obstacles, you know exactly what to offer them because you've asked phenomenal questions. And then number 10 is, this is my favorite. I do this in any company I've ever worked with in my life, and it's so freaking effective. I get the whole team, the whole office into one room. Sometimes we have 100 people in one room. Sometimes we have 1,000 in a conference room. Sometimes we got 5. But I gather everybody that's involved with the company, and I get a dry erase board and a marker, and I say, I want every single person in this room to give me 50 different reasons, 100 different reasons why we are the best solution in the history of the world for this, for our customers. Why are we the best? What makes us the best? What are the million different ways we add value in people's life? Why do we dominate the competition? Why are we superior to the competition? And I just list. Being a phenomenal salesperson is not much different than being a phenomenal attorney. If you look at an attorney, what do they always have with them when they go to court? Every attorney has this. They have their briefcase. And what's in the briefcase? Just exhibit after exhibit after exhibit after exhibit after exhibit. Another word of proof, 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 proof. Everywhere I go, I always have a proof or some example of somebody's life that changed by doing business with them. You can't just like tell people how amazing you are. You got to show it. You got to prove it in every way possible. 10 could be right up there with number 1. I love this exercise of being and proving that you're the absolute best. I really hope this was helpful. Subscribe to our podcast, subscribe to our blog, check out any of our ebooks. Again, my mission is to provide as many valuable resources to the salespeople that are struggling, because this is going to be a tough year to stand out and be a phenomenal salesperson or a business owner trying to scale. So you're going to need all the resources you can possibly imagine. So we're trying to provide every piece of information we possibly can to make you guys just transform and grow and scale to a whole new level this year. Thank you so much.